Hey, Dave LeCalio at HeadGames Motorworks. Today I got a very special one for you. This is Bernard Muvinovich. I knew I was going to mess that one up. I even called him and made him say it. Muvinovich. Anyway, fastest M4 in the country, and he brought it in because it's been to a couple of machine shops. They couldn't figure out what's wrong with the head. The car just has a bunch of misfires, and it's here now, and we're going to dissect it. Notice that the tip of the valve is mushrooming and indented from the rocker, and this is because the valve is no longer just going up and down and sliding inside the rocker. It's actually slamming the tip of the valve into the rocker, so it leaves like a mark here. How do you avoid this? You get a spring that needs to be like, it needs to be badass for it to make this kind of power. He's not making 800, he's making 1200, and sometimes you run into some issues. You can see it on the intake side too. Sorry for all the jumpiness. Again, this is because you're not using the right spring. And you can see it all over the camshafts. See how either oil contamination, lack of oil. It could be that the stem height is wrong. Now we're gonna have to figure that out by taking it apart. You can see this is like an indentation. It was pretty easy to notice before we even took it apart that it had some valve float. I showed you the tip of the valve, and now you can see it on the 45. The 45 is beat into the valve. It's beat into pretty much all of them. They all look beat up. This thing has 0 miles on it and has one dyno pull. This is what one dyno pull with the wrong kit in there can do. And you can also notice the heat. You see how it's turning purples and blues and all that stuff over here? All that is from heat. Way too much heat. And it goes all the way up the stem of the valve. You can see it on this one too. So you can see on these valves here how the 45 is pretty much indented into the head. The problem when you have this situation is you're going to lose spring height, you lose lash, and pretty much everything goes away at this point. All your geometry goes away. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to check spring height, make sure that it was somewhat in the right spot. I really doubt it was, especially because of the wear. And then we're going to move on and see if we can find some other issues. In order to check spring height, you have to measure some stuff. So we measure the bottom of the retainer to the tip of the valve. We're going to subtract that. You measure the locator or the seal, because it's a hat seal, we subtract that. And we get a stem height. So we subtract all that and you get so the intake is 1.460. We have 394 lift, which is 10 millimeter. And I'll just do this again. So you can see that the spring is supposed to be 80 pounds on the seat. It's advertised as 80 pounds on the seat, 180 open. And we're at 70 pounds on the seat and 141 open with a huge clearance to coil bind. So that was the intake, and now we did the exhaust, and the exhaust is actually a little bit better. So we're at a installed height of 1404, 394 lift. Now we got that 80 pounds, 153 open is about what I thought. So the call out is actually at 500 thousandths, which is 100 thousandths more than this. So it's not going to make 180, it'll be 150. We're 132 from bind. and a spring rate of only 184. It should be noted that what I'm saying is it's not actually the spring kit's fault. It was designed for whatever it was designed for, but it wasn't the right spring for this application. Making 1,200 horsepower, you just need more spring. You're not going to get away with something that makes 80 pounds on the seat and like 160 open, which is what this spring is designed for. Upon further inspection, we realized that the valves that they used are actually oversized valves from Ferrea. Now, I have an issue with oversized valves in this head because it's just going to shroud the valve. Here's two problems with using an oversized valve in this particular head, and that is one, we left this valve in so you could see it, but that is actually the edge of the valve seat. Not out here, but right here, right where the 45-degree angle where it's going to seal is the edge of the valve seat. The issue with that is that the valve seat acts like a heat sink. And so if we got rid of the heat sink, what I mean by that is if you put the 45 at the very edge of the valve seat, there's not enough surface area for the valve seat to work properly and to dissipate the heat. Don't get me wrong, it's only a 0.5 millimeter, so we're talking maybe 10,000ths aside. It's not the end of the world, but it's also right from OEM, these things are tight on the valve seat, and we just basically took it all away. What I mean by shrouding is if you see this area here and all around here, there is a lot of material that the valve, now you can see how tight it is to the valve, and basically this kills flow. You're going to kill flow all in the low lift area because the valve is pretty much covered up. And remind you, like, here's the bore. You see this line right here? This is the bore. So there's no room for this valve to be in here. The exhaust is not as bad. As you can see, there's only a little bit of shrouding here, but there's really nothing around it. The exhaust could kind of work, but again, as you can see here, we're at the very edge of the valve seat. There's only like a little bit left. If it was me, I would just leave it at stock size. Most heads, on every genre that we deal with, when we put an oversized valve, it kills low lift no matter what, and it'll pick up from 350 lift on. But these don't have that much lift. So basically, it's a point of diminishing return where you put something in because you think it's better, but it's really not because it shrouds it up. And once you take it out, you can't put it back in. Basically what we're gonna do is just leave what's in there, and it is what it is. But we also are gonna do the combustion chamber. We're gonna reshape it. We're gonna de-shroud the valve as much as we can. I'm gonna flow it before and after so you guys can see the difference. All right, so we flow tested it, and now we have our baseline numbers. We can do our valve job, flow it, do our combustion chambers and flow it, and then see what kind of gains we get. All right, that's gonna do it for us today. We're gonna have a part 2, maybe even a part 3. So we're gonna do a build-up of this whole deal. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment below. I'd love to hear from you. If you wanna see anything in this build, please let me know. Toodles.